Boom. There we go. Peace and blessings, everyone. Assalamu alaikum and happy Saturday. Not really sure what's happening with my screen back there, but we're gonna roll with it because that's what we do. You are tuned in to the Art of Living. This is our YouTube / podcast show where we just have great conversations with different guests around all the topics around the art of living. For those of you that are tuned in for the first time, again, my name is Imani Muhammad. You see it there or over here, whichever way. I am live and direct from Portland, Oregon. Again, the Art of Living topic, kind of the name of the show, came from my book titled The Art of Living. I wrote a book about a year and a half ago around universal principles that I think no matter which way of life, which religion, no matter where we come from, I believe that knowledge, wisdom, and understanding are universal principles that we have to have in our lives. And so the book itself just talks about a mindset, talks about really looking at ourselves as scientific human beings and really evaluating the way we think so that we can go from just existing to living or existing to thriving, getting away from just surviving. So, again, our conversations that we have on this show is from different walks of life, different people, always rooted into high level conversations and rooted into changing the perspective and helping people with their mindset. So, last show that we had was pretty powerful. It was around mental health and spiritual health and the connection between our mental wellness and our spiritual wellness and how it impacts and affects us. So if you haven't watched that show, I highly suggest y'all jump back after today's show and listen to that. And then today's conversation is we just gonna talk about a whole bunch of stuff because one, it's a friend of mine who I have not seen. I've seen him, but really haven't been able to dialogue with him in many, many years. And we used to go real deep and have great conversations. So this is going to be like our own reunion. So y'all just going to be the audience and listen to it. But more importantly, we're going to talk about some heavy topics that he and I have both been involved in terms of our work in our city, but also nationally as well. So I'm excited about today's show. I'm going to bring him in real quick and we're just going to get started. So let's go ahead and bring him in. All right.
Hello, everyone.
Hey. Okay. You good?
I believe so. No.
Mm-mm. It might be the. Okay, you want. So I muted you on the screen. Hold on, we got to get the audio together.
Screen, have me unmuted on the phone.
Let's try it again.
You got me muted?
Let's got the echo. So right now I have you unmuted on the phone, but I don't hear you on the phone.
Now do you hear me?
I mean, I hear you, but we got the echo.
Sometimes this one will pause on me. So if I pause, you just have to let me know that you all don't hear me.
Got you. Okay. We are good to go for now. So yeah,
Yes.
just let me know. We can toggle back and forth. But Tony, thank you for just making time this Saturday morning.
Absolutely.
I appreciate you. It's always good to see you. And let's go. Let's just jump on in. So I know you, of course. I know the work that you've done. But go ahead and just kind of give our audience just a little brief bio of who you are and the work that you do, and then we'll kind of jump into specifics about the work.
Okay. So, my name is Tony Funchess. I am a native son of the city, born and raised right here in Portland, Oregon. Still live in the same neighborhood, fortunately. That has definitely not been an easy task, but definitely one that's been worth it. So, right over here in the Irvington neighborhood, still. And that's kind of where it started for me, growing up in a multicultural neighborhood back then, and being involved in all of the cultural programming that was available back then, kind of just set me on a trajectory to find me as the advocate that I am today. So I have a consultancy, Unlimited Potential PDX, seen there scrolling around across the bottom of the screen. It began with me doing some artist development, um, just helping folks identify their full potential. But then it just grew, tying into the things that I'm passionate about. I'm passionate about justice and equity, diversity and inclusion. I'm passionate about philanthropy and politics and art. And so I just have had the blessed opportunity to take my skill sets and work with nonprofits, predominantly arts agencies in the past, um, to build a platform of communication and an opportunity where they invite me in to host their post-show conversations because I find access points that some people don't. My lens, I have a unique lens at looking at things. So
Yeah.
I come on board, I find those access points, and we dig deep. And hopefully, in the process of digging deep, I help illuminate for other people areas of growth, change, and opportunity for all of that to come together for us to be better. And that's all I'm aiming for, all of us to be better.
Absolutely. I think, again, we have this Portland connection. And that has got us our roots, but we also know that, like you said, the wanting to be better, wanting to be change agents is universal, right? And
Yes.
so can you share a little bit about, and again, if you want me to jump into the slides for you, I can, but just jump into a little bit about, for you, what was it about your upbringing in Portland that really solidified for you to say, you know what, I want to move into justice and equity work? Yeah, just start there for me.
Interestingly enough, I was already doing the work, but I don't think it had really like solidified for me. Like in the notes that I sent over to you, um, I was a part of the NAACP youth chapter. I was the one who went to Fox Theater and demanded that they showed Malcolm X in the hood
Right.
because
Right.
they were not, Lloyd was not having it. They were like, we're not showing it. We're not showing it. So I've been a part of the movement a long time. But I think that it was after going and being incarcerated.
Okay.
I grew up with the narrative, oh, he doesn't like men, he doesn't like men, he doesn't like men. That's all I ever heard. One, because I didn't see any positive role models to like. And two, it was a false narrative that gave someone else comfort. Um, with that, uh, yeah, I didn't. I didn't. I believed the narrative. But it wasn't until I was spending time in prison and I got to see us through a different lens. I got to see us as whole beings. I got to see us as people who have a story and who have value. I'm not saying everyone incarcerated is innocent. Definitely not
Right.
saying that. But I did learn a lot around the level of innocence that exists. And a lot of it is men not having outlets to communicate who they are. And so learning who I was, um, and then learning that the system is by design targeted against me and those like me, I had no choice but to become deeply committed to the liberation of those who are incarcerated. But I believe all of us are incarcerated to some degree. We do not see the connection between as you've mentioned, the school to prison pipeline, we don't see the connection that if our boys aren't reading by the third grade, that the
Right.
state is already budgeting a prison bed for them.
Yep.
We're not seeing the interconnectivity between the behaviors that are happening in our elementary school and the policing that's happening in our streets. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right.
it all for me made very clear sense. And this is just the work that I've been committed to. And everything that I do, whether I'm talking about arts, whether I'm talking about philanthropy, whether I'm talking about school lunch, I'm tying it back to mass
Mm-hmm.
incarceration.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you really want to have someone to be upset with, it is that system. It is that
Right.
system that is keeping books out of our students' hands. It is that system that is keeping medication away from sick people. It is that system that is helping exasperate our homelessness problem.
Mm-hmm.
So when we look at the core problems of what's ailing America, we can really see that it exists in our criminal justice system and in our prison system more specifically.
Right. Right. And I'm glad that you opened up that door because I do want to ask this one question because so much of our, not only Black men, but we know that Black men are disproportionately represented in the prison industrial complex, and so not many folks come to where you come, like come to where your realization is, right? A lot of times that recidivism rate is just a revolving door, right? Because of the systems and the barriers. So was there something while you were there that clicked for you, or was it just already in you and you just knew that like when I am able to get out, this is what I'm doing. So was there something in there that took place?
Um, I think one of the biggest and the most defining moments was accessing the real, true meaning of forgiveness. Um,
Mm, wow. Yeah.
Two key factors, two key pieces of that was I was sitting in jail, suicidal, jail, not prison, jail. I was sitting in jail. I had not even made it to prison yet. But because I had grown up hearing the narrative, oh, he doesn't like men and all of that kind of stuff, I was terrified to go to prison.
Mm-hmm.
Terrified. And my youngest son sent me a picture, stick figures, and he had drew two stick figures, and he had given each stick figure speech bubbles, and he had named each stick figure. The one up top he had named God, and the one down below he had named Dad. And in my speech bubble, he wrote, "I'm so sorry," and in the above speech bubble, he wrote, "I forgive you."
Mm,
And it was in that moment that I realized that no matter what I had done wrong, I had done that right.
mm-hmm.
So that was the first step in getting me off my bunk and getting me to live.
Mm,
That was the first thing because I literally was sitting on my bunk trying to figure out how do people kill themselves in here because the
wow.
bunks ain't high enough.
Right.
You
Right.
know, it's like, and the showers are too open. I was like, somebody done lied to the rest of us. But in all seriousness, it was my youngest son who saved my life. And
Mm,
then while I was incarcerated, the last thing you want to do is go to church. It may seem weird, but going to church is a huge indicator there's something wrong with you in prison.
mm,
So if you go to church, you're going to church to um, sell drugs, hook up,
wow.
just it's a red flag. And it's like,
Right.
okay, why are you going to church? So I didn't want any additional attention. So I was like, I'm not going to church. No way, Jose. I'm like, I'm gonna sit on my bunk because now I'm squarely in prison. I'm minding my
Right.
business. That's all I want to do. But my friend Terry Hightower, he kept saying, "Come go, come go, come go." He handled the music. He
Mm,
wanted me to come help with the music, and they were showing a video called "The Bait of Satan" by
oh, wow.
John Bevere, and it talked about the power of unforgiveness, how unforgiveness will block your prayers.
Mm,
Like that, right in and of itself, was enough to
mm-hmm.
be like, "Wait a minute,
Right.
here I am in in a space where I need my prayers to be heard,
Mm-hmm.
and I could be the barrier to it. Nah, 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 nah." So
Mm-hmm.
after watching that series, a couple of those episodes, I went back to my bunk and I wrote apology letters to everybody I could think of.
Wow.
I
Wow.
mean, I apologized for what I knew I did. I apologized for what I didn't know I had done.
Mm-hmm.
I I gave apology where I thought it went. I gave apology where I didn't think it should go, but I
Right.
knew that I needed to clear my record.
Yep.
That I would work from a clean slate, and from the moment that I released all that unforgiveness, every door in prison opened for me. I got the best job in prison. Um, I
Mm,
got to have a voice of influence and change in prison, and the changes that I helped instituted while I was there are still
mm-hmm.
in place to this day.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm grateful for that, and I know that's only because I tapped into the power of forgiveness.
Right. Right. And I thank you for sharing that because I was reading some of the, like you said, some of the changes that you were able to put in place. Um, and obviously, one particular one was around Ramadan and making sure that the Muslims
Hmm.
got a full meal. Like, first of all, I read that and I was like, okay, they weren't getting that. Like, they crackers and peanut butter. Like, what are we doing? So that just spoke to me too because I was just like, you know, a non-Muslim, right, advocating for
Hmm.
and just why did it take so long? So like that's what I was thinking about
Right.
in my mind. Like, really, this is what we're doing? So
Yeah.
I just yeah, it just speaks to what you said about just making change and treating folks like you said from the humanitarian aspect. So um personal kudos for you on that one because I was like, yeah,
Thank you.
can we make sure the Muslims get a real meal? You know?
Yeah, I just believe in taking care of all of us. I really
Right.
do. At the end of the day, I'm big on taking care of all of us,
Yeah.
and that's just the mindset that I use. If it's not all of us, then you're coming up short, and
Right.
if you're coming up short, then we got some more work to do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, let's jump into because I want to talk a little bit about your philosophy around
Mhm.
justice, equality, diversity, and inclusion. I love the acronym, by the way. I think it's so dope being a Jedi.
Thank you,
So I just want to say that. Um,
thank you, thank you.
but yes, let's jump into that real quick. And do you want to like break this down a little bit, or you want to jump into?
Yes.
I would
So
love.
this
Yes.
is great. This is a great place to start. So what I have learned in my years of experience um, is that there's a difference between a victim and a survivor.
Mm-hmm,
There's a huge difference,
mm-hmm,
and victims have yet to identify. And I know they're going to be pissed about it, but oh well, I'm going to stand on what I believe. Is that they have yet to identify um, how to reclaim their power from
mm-hmm.
the incident, person, place, or thing that has harmed them. So everyone becomes a trigger to a victim.
Come on. Yep.
A survivor is someone who has identified person, place, or thing that has harmed them and has regained some level of strength and power from that. They are in the process of continuously reclaiming their power.
Mm-hmm.
And so, what safe space does is allow victims to remain victims, while courageous space helps all of us, victim, survivor, and otherwise, move forward.
Mm-hmm.
In safe space, we will often find groupthink, where everyone's thinking the same. And that is such an unhealthy model that it even comes up in business school. They will tell you how unhealthy groupthink is, but yet that's what we have consistently seen as safe space. Everyone's saying the same thing, everyone's feeling the same thing, and there is no room for any other ideas or identities to exist in that space and without conflict. It is interesting that the same people who tout the term safe space, who come from a social justice framework, miss this, because we often say that without conflict, without discomfort, there can be no change. So how can we expect there to be change in those that we love and identify and allow to exist in a victim space? If I love you, I would want you to be If I love you, I want to see you happy, whole, healthy,
Right.
healed, and successful. Those
Come
are my 5 pieces. So
come
you
on.
have to move into courageous space. And what
Yes.
courageous space is it's a space where all participants, that means the person who has caused harm as well as the person who has been harmed. This is absolutely a space where restorative justice can exist.
Mm-hmm.
Restorative justice cannot exist in a safe space, but it is a space where all participants feel invited to lean in and contribute their lived experiences, knowledge, and skill set towards the uplifting of self and the collective towards a shared outcome of growth, healing, resiliency, transformation, and resolution,
Mm-hmm.
even if the dialogue is challenging and uncomfortable and possibly triggering. We've
Mm-hmm.
got to stop letting folks triggers disrupt learning
Mm-hmm.
spaces and
Mm-hmm.
social spaces. And I am not saying people cannot be harmed. That is not what I'm saying. I'm simply saying let's use what our lived experiences are and move us forward. Let's not get stuck
Right.
in the space of woe is me. Let's not get stuck in the place of victimhood. Let's not get stuck allowing, that saying and saying, I just love you to death. No, love me to
Love
life.
me to life, please and thank you.
And
Yes.
so what it's not is it's not a space absent of challenge and discomfort and only populated by similar thoughts and experiences, because that is to the detriment and further harm of all participants. That
Mm-hmm.
person doesn't learn or grow. The person who's caused harm doesn't have an opportunity to resolve that and move forward,
Right.
right? The whole system is out of whack.
Mm-hmm.
And so
I
so
love
with the
that.
system being out of whack,
Yeah, I
there can
love
be
it.
no healing. Can
Right.
you what's our what is could you go ahead and put the link to this on the screen for me so I can share it out with folks?
Yes, absolutely. Um,
Because they are blowing my phone up like I have not been posting it for the past week.
all good. I'll drop it in there for you. And I think
Thank you.
I want to just say to this piece about hold on. I'm gonna drop it in. I'm gonna drop it in this chat on the channel, but
Great. Thank
I'll
you.
also give it to you in the message. What I want to say about the safe space, I mean, you really summed it up, but also, like you said, who defines safe, right? And safe typically is always going to be defined by the dominant culture and or who's facilitating, right? And so oftentimes
Yes.
it's a comfort, right? Like you said, like what's safe for you and safe for me may be two different things. So if we're not engaging in the courageous piece of it, right, where we're gonna go back and forth, where we're gonna be inflexible or uncomfortable at all of those moments, that's what dialogue and relationship is about. But if we're constantly coming in just with the intent of keeping a safe space, then again, who's defining that and whose comfort are we centering? So
Right.
that's why I love that. I love it.
Right. And that's the thing. It's I am actually designing a whites only workshop. And
Mm,
that's the things that's come up is like who are we centering? Why are we centering? What is
mhm.
their experience? What is people's level of discomfort? Those type of things. Because we want to dig into basically the main question, as you probably get it oftentimes too, white
Mhm.
folks are always asking, what can we do to be better?
Right.
Well, I'm finna show you.
Right.
I'm finna show you. I'm
Good.
finna show you. And it starts
Mhm.
with you really having conversations with yourselves.
With yourself.
Um, Cause I don't we don't need no more conversations with us. Y'all need to start working on y'all. And some of y'all are gonna have to step up and be leaders in this, because
Yes.
basically what we're trying to do is create an anti-whiteness, an anti-racist, an anti-oppressive culture.
Right.
And culture must have philosophies, culture must have leaders, and culture must have idioms. They must have the things that give folks something to celebrate. Well,
Right.
somebody's got to step out front and lead that. And it
Absolutely.
can't just be Tim Wise
Right.
and Jane and Robin DiAngelo. It can't just
Mhm.
be a handful of folks. It's normal everyday white folks who need to step it up.
Absolutely. And I think too with that, I this is my personal belief around racial equity work. There is a piece of racial equity work that has to be separated, right? So many of us are facilitators, and we're in, we come into organizations. I have a contract right now with Clark County. And so of course, as the brown girl, black or brown girl coming in, my entire audience, 80-90% are white folks, which is, okay, we're doing the work. But at the end of the day, like you said, there's a piece of this work that has to be in affinity, because the conversations that white people have to have are between themselves, right? And you cannot always expect us to teach you, and at the expense of our own trauma and our own experiences too. And then there's a work that we have to do within ourselves. And that's a whole nother topic about the work that we have to do for ourselves to deprogram ourselves from dominant culture. But I just want to name that is that some of this work we do have to be okay with telling other people to go do their work, and like you said, it requires the common white folks to rise up and be leaders of their own folks, their brothers and sisters. I tell people, get your cousin, because that Becky and all of them, just for the sake of my point, y'all, but Karen and Becky need their mom or their older sister to pull them in and correct them. It should not be because of us having to tell them that they were wrong. So anyway, we're going to go back to safe and courageous. But I just want to say that because it's true. And oftentimes we're tokenized to be the equity experts, right? And yes, some of us are experts,
right?
But don't throw me in there just because you don't want to do the work.
Right. And this workshop is designed for them to do the work. It is designed for them to do the work. I know it's going to be a heavy lift doing an all white workshop at a diversity conference, but that's my goal. I just I want them to learn how to be better and do better, because it's the question they ask all the time.
Yep.
So back to this safe and courageous, just outlining it. Safe space allows victimhood to trump survivorship. It alienates diverse thought. It targets others regardless of their trauma or experience. That one I think is really important, because if you don't agree with the space or the energy in that space, you then become an enemy. You then become a perpetrator and can have your whole life torn apart just because you're not in agreement with the masses. And that does not speak to a democratic society, just to throw that in there. And it does not center change, growth, personal justice, which is well-being, and strengths as goals. It is not a goal-focused space. It is really for lack of a better term, it's just really, I'm not going to say that, but it's a gripe fest. That's the best way to say it. And then courageous space. It may be inclusive of all impacted parties, and it limits groupthink because of that. It focuses on strength versus weakness. It is about where you are able to learn and grow and be victorious. It allows for restorative justice. Safe space doesn't allow that because it doesn't invite the other party in. This space allows for the other party to be included. Does not mean they are required to be, but it does allow for it. And it creates space for healing-centered work. We often want to work from a place of trauma and seeing like, oh, you're just so broken by your trauma. But let's look at how strong you are by your healing, by what you've been through, by where you're able to go. Let's look at the cultural assets that exist within you to make you a champion, victorious over whatever this trial is that has come your way. So it's healing centered versus trauma triggering dialogue to be the focal point. It's really all about the growth of people. So I invite people to have courageous conversations, to lean into courageous spaces. We may not always agree, but if we approach it with some level of respect, I think we can get to some commonality and some problem resolutions.
Absolutely. Let's see. You want to jump into this? So this is just for the audience.
Sure.
This acronym. He better trademark it because I'm gonna take it. No, I'm just playing.
So
Love it. I love
I,
it.
I, s- I seen it early on when nobody else was using it. I'm not the
Yeah.
very first person to use it,
Hmm.
but I started using it early on because I believe it is the intentional work of doing these things, the intentional
Hmm.
act of, and these are not passive. The reason why I took the time to do this is because we all say these words,
Yep.
but we're not all working from the same definition. And if your organization has any of these words listed anywhere on their website, but they don't have them defined,
Hmm.
not just explained in, oh, we do justice work and da 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 da, this is how we do justice work. Well, how are you defining justice?
Right.
How are you defining equity? How are you defining? This is one of the very first things I do in my trainings is I get us on some common ground around language.
Hmm.
And not having a working definition means the conversation can go anywhere, and we're trying to be focused with lightsaber and with laser type focus at being the best Jedi possible. I know it is not the best term out there for it, but I do think that for me, this is what sums up the work
Hmm.
is that it must begin with justice. So I think I put those in there backwards. I must
All
have
good.
because so you want to,
Right.
there we go. So justice is bringing corrective and restorative strength and healing to the lives harmed by oppressive systems, people, practices, and environments. It cannot simply be, oh, we just want fairness,
Hmm.
because what's fair to one person may not be fair to the next person.
Right.
So it must be that intentional act of bringing corrective. That means that you are changing something, that you are reversing something, you are bringing about a different outcome that is restorative, that is strength focused and healing to the folks who have been harmed.
Hmm.
And anything short of that, if you're not bringing correction to harm, then you're not doing justice work.
Yep.
It
Yep.
can't just be, oh, well, we did X, Y, and Z. We brought out sandwiches for these kids, but what are you doing to correct the problem? So that's that. Then on to equity, not equality. Equity is, for me, equity is filling in the gap. It's ensuring that all involved have that which is necessary to bring fairness. This is where I believe fairness has its place, not injustice.
Hmm.
But justice and fairness are often linked. But to bring fairness into their lives and the systems they interact with, aiding them towards wholeness, self-sufficiency, well-being, success, sustainability, and joy. And so recently, the ACLU reached out to me asking me how much they should be paying their formerly incarcerated freelance workers. And I told them, what are you paying your white ones?
Right. Period. Period.
I didn't know we were like, let's start there. Let's first
Right.
start there. Are you paying them fairly is based off of where are you paying your white ones?
Hmm.
If you're paying your white ones more, then that's a different conversation. But then once you figure out what's fair and equity are not the same. See, equity is ensuring that all folks have what they need. And in doing this work, and I'm grateful for you allowing me this opportunity to speak today, while you may interview me, 15 other folks won't.
Mm.
So what equity looks like for the ACLU in this question is doubling doubling what they pay, tripling
Yeah.
what they pay, because they know that 10 other agencies are not going to hire that
Right.
person. And
Yep.
I'm not saying it's the ACLU's job to subsidize the lives of those who have been formerly incarcerated, but you cannot say you want to do equity work and not fill in the gap. And that's really what it is. It's about standing in the gap and bridging the distance between what other people have,
Yep.
that they have consistently have and
Mm.
will consistently have
Hmm.
into the lives of those who have been locked out because
Hmm.
they've been locked up. So
Wow. I love that example though. I mean, and that just painted a very clear picture um, for how there is a difference between equity, fairness, and equality, right? So, um, yeah, I love that. I love that.
And then diversity is creating an understanding of the value of presence of variety in people, practices, ideas, and identities. And I think we just think diversity is, oh, we had nachos today.
Oh gosh, not the nachos.
Or
Cinco de
or
Mayo.
or or yep, because it was Cinco de Mayo. or or during February, chicken. We're gonna
Right.
have some chicken and watermelon in February.
Watermelon.
They spend their whole chicken budget in 1 month. And it's about creating an understanding the value. Do you understand the value of why we
Right.
like our chicken? Do you understand the value of why nachos is a staple, or like beyond that? Like, do you
Yeah.
understand that these things are born out of struggle, not out of celebration in a lot of ways? So it's
Mm,
about really understanding the things that we claim to be celebrating, and then
mhm,
inclusion. And I think this is important, is involving as many voices, ideas, identities, expressions, cultural representations, especially those most often silenced, marginalized, oppressed, and excluded,
mm.
and have an equal place within the systems and places that impact and intersect with their lives. Um, I was having a meeting yesterday, and they said, "Oh, be Jedi," and I said, "Excuse me." Yeah, you do be Jedi. No, I don't do be Jedi. I don't do belonging Jedi work. If you are doing inclusion work correctly, you don't need a separate letter for belonging.
Mm,
Belonging is a inward sense that is created by someone feeling connected and welcome in the space that they exist in. So
mhm.
if you're doing inclusion work, which is involving all of those identities and expressions, especially those that have been marginalized, to bring to an equal place within the systems and places that impact and intersect with their lives, that's belonging.
Right.
So you don't need to. So the problem with the
Right.
field is that it's trending and extremely billable. There
Mm,
are a lot of people out here who are, and I let me tell you, I'm trying to get my cut. So no, I am
okay.
not cheap.
Right.
But what I'm
Right.
saying is my work comes with tangibles. My work comes with some benchmarks
Yeah.
and accountability.
Right.
My work comes with a huge level of accountability. And it's not just around, oh, this sounds good, because that's what that sounds like to me. Belonging, be
Mhm.
Jedi. Just like let the do the work that's already there and do
Right.
it right. And
Right.
you won't have to keep creating new letters for where you're failing. Because if you were doing Jedi work correctly, you wouldn't have needed to go create a separate letter for the area and where you're failing. And no, I'm not talking bad about PCC for their Be Jedi work. I just am saying what I'm saying about who I'm saying it.
Right. Period. And honestly, too, and I'll say this because I do say this in my trainings. There's a piece of this work that let me take a step back. The fact that we have to talk about DEI or justice and like the what's the word I want to use? The idiosyncrasies, the ridiculousness, I'll just say that we have
Mm-hmm,
to use these
mm-hmm.
terms just for dominant culture to consider us as an equal. I'm not even gonna say that we are, and they
Right,
are. Just
right.
consider that we could be on the
Yeah,
same playing field as them. So the fact that we actually have to do these pieces of work, the fact that it is buzzwords, the fact that there are checks being written to help companies start this work, like that is so interesting. I'm just gonna say that. Now I'm with you.
yeah,
I'm gonna be in that work and I'm gonna be in that line of field. But on a bigger scale, if we're looking at a society from a sociological standpoint and looking at how societies and people make up systems, we should be ashamed of ourselves as a people that we have to literally in 2022 do this type of work. I just want to say that.
right,
Like not
right.
us as facilitators, as a whole, as a system, that we really got to have conversations around the school to prison pipeline and really have conversations about the truth behind building prisons based on reading scores that are showing up in Black and brown youth. Like the fact that that's
Mm-hmm.
real and we're
Mm-hmm.
having this where's the uproar? You know what I mean? Where's the
Right.
so
Right.
okay, I'm getting
And
go ahead.
so it's a, I think when people really begin to understand, um, so my mentor, uh, Glenn Martin, he tells a story about when he was released from prison that the guard was like, "Thank you for my boat. And I'm gonna thank your son for my son's boat. Like, you'll be back.
Oh
You've
wow.
paid for my boat, and
Mm-mm.
your son is going to end up in here paying for my son's boat,
Mm.
you know?" And my cousin works
Wow.
at a rural prison, and rural prisons really feed the economic livelihood of
Yep.
of of those towns. And until we can disconnect the very existence, right? Someone's livelihood, their ability to take care of themselves with the harm that they are causing to other people as correction officers. And I'm not talking about a good
Mm.
correction officer or a bad correction officer. I'm talking about just existing
Yep.
in that as a corrections officer, because I have several in my family. Um, until we can disconnect them from the wealth magnet that it is, then and what we're talking about, and this is
Mm-hmm.
why I say I serve Black, brown, and broken folks, right? They broke and broken, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
I want us to be clear that we do have to take care of broke white folks. We got to take care of broke white folks. If we don't take care of broke white folks, then we might as well just give it up. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm not being a defeatist. I'm just simply saying, um, that if we really have to take care of all of us, we
Mm-hmm.
cannot leave anybody behind in creating change. Because the moment we leave someone behind, our true enemy,
Mm-hmm.
those that hold wealth,
Yep.
will do what they've always done because it's always worked for them, which is pit us against each other, divide and conquer. So we have to um, figure out how to take care of those rural communities. This is and Oregon is a perfect example. Like we can't got to stop tiptoeing around it, especially as we have a governor's election coming up, gubernatorial election coming up. We need someone that can unite a metropolitan region and a rural region and govern both equitably. And
Mm.
because truth be told, our state is way more rural than it is metropolitan.
Right.
Yes, the power is focused in the metropolitan area,
Yep.
but the real sway is out in rural Oregon and rural America. And so
Yep.
if we don't take care of those folks, and I'm not saying we panhandle to them, no, and I'm not saying that we elevate them above other folks' needs, never that. But I am definitely saying we got to bring them along.
Right.
We have to. And so we've got to figure out a new level of industry to replace closing rural prisons, because most prisons outside of those that sit at the seat of government are in rural areas.
Mm-hmm.
It
Mm-hmm.
is automatically, it's already a setup of us versus them, and it doesn't have to be.
Wow. Wow. That's a yeah. I'm glad you brought that point up. And I see this in um like how resources are allocated. And I live on
Mm-hmm.
the border of East County, so I'm in between Gresham and Portland. And so I constantly see and I constantly have these conversations. And I'm like, look, yeah, I have a Portland address, but this is not Portland in terms of infrastructure and the city. It's rural, and Portland
Well,
folk ain't Gresham folk, you
well,
know.
you do know that out there in that area, the reason why it's that that mix is because it's not the city, the jurisdiction is not cut by the streets. It is by the water line under the ground.
Yep.
So that way your front door may be Portland, but your back door could be Gresham. Right. That's how come you get the Portland police, the highway patrol, the Gresham police. You get everybody. Everybody shows up. Yeah. But yeah, so and it's by design though.
By design. Right.
It's by design. Right. Because because you live out there, how do you close the Boys and Girls Club and open a police station before you open a community center? Somebody make it make sense to me. Like, tell me what you're prioritizing. Are you prioritizing the well-being of these young people, or are you prioritizing law and order infrastructure?
Absolutely. And that's where I say, like, when you step outside of that inner metro area, like you said, Oregon is more rural than not. And so I just love that you brought that into play, because I think oftentimes we forget that, but you step right outside of Portland and it's a different climate, and I think that's so important for us to remember, because again, as you start talking about gentrification and where Black and brown folks are either choosing to live or being pushed out, whichever way you go with the conversation, either way, we're pushed out or we're out here. And that looks different being out in a city like Gresham, Estacada, Sandy, Beaverton, Tigard. All of that looks different when you compare it to Portland. And so you got different government structures, different like all of that changes. And so I think oftentimes we forget that, and we layer Portland across the board, and Portland is just what it is, little Portland.
Yeah.
About somewhere else. So I'm glad you brought that up, because I do think, even in the work that I do, I don't think I made that connection in terms of the prisons, and like you said, that's generating wealth and financial backing, I'm gonna just throw this in there. I have a training on Tuesday, and it's our last training of 4 sessions. And what we're doing is sharing the story of, what's the lady's name? Her name is Donna Scott, I think. It's the white woman in Rutherford, I think, Connecticut, where she made a promo video to recruit agencies and organizations to invest in their prisons. And there was a whole story. You remember, it was like last year, I think it was. And what it was is that they found that she was, obviously incarcerating Black and brown youth at a higher rate. And then they found this promo video that she was basically soliciting to government agencies, to other corporations, to pour in their investments into these prison industrial complex. And in her language, she's like, we guarantee 100% occupancy. How do you do that if you don't have the laws and the policies and the infrastructure that's going to back that? So my training is actually with probation officers, all these folks that are in the work. And again, I'm trying to give them a raw, just in your face, this is what your system represents, not only to the masses, but this is how we interact as Black and brown folks and poor whites that have to interact in this system, right? You got folks who are creating laws to make sure that their investment on the back end from
is protected. Yep.
And Intel, whoever else, all these companies, I didn't want to just throw Intel. So I'll throw Nike, Intel, and like probably Walmart, have investments in using prison labor to make their bottom line.
They do.
It's a whole, yeah.
So it's a mess. When you get to talking about prison labor, that is a whole nother mess. It's just, I want to say this before we get off of here.
Yep.
Prison labor aside, all that kind of stuff. Here's what I need us to know. If I don't say nothing else to us.
Yep.
The reason we lose our loved ones to the system is because we let them go. They go into the system and we tell the story. They off making a movie. They at camp. Oh, they fine. They be back. They visiting. Oh, you know how Charlie is. You know he'll be back. He'll be back. And that whole
Come on
time while
now.
they're gone, we ain't sent we ain't sent a final call. We ain't sent a scanner. We ain't sent $10. And I know that we are all struggling, but when we resign to not be the anchor that holds our young people, and I'm going to talk about young people specifically, holds our young people in love, still connected to the community from which they came, we surrender them to the community in which they are now a part of. And with that, they have to do what is necessary to find an identity to keep them alive and safe in that new community, especially if they have nothing that they are anchored to in their original community.
Wow.
So if you don't want Junebug to come home a complete fool, then you need to remind Junebug that he wasn't a fool when he went in.
Right.
You've got to love Junebug, regardless of whatever Junebug did. That does not mean that you overlook their bad behavior. Because listen, don't overlook mine. Don't overlook mine. But I've done my time. I've done my time and I've done the work.
Right.
And really, if you try me, we will begin to run accolades and you will not keep up. But the point is, no, because people they be trying me.
I already know. Come on now.
They try me. But the point is, don't lose Junebug by being ashamed of what Junebug did. That's what Junebug did. That ain't got nothing to do with what you did. You did your best to raise Junebug, to love Junebug. And the only thing you can do at this point is keep doing that.
Right.
Because the moment that you stop telling Junebug about Miss Sally's hair or church on Sunday, or how bad the kids acted on Thursday, and how his brother dropped the kids off on Wednesday and you ain't seen him since, as long as he doesn't have anything that anchors him, whether it be him, her, they, whatever their identity, however they identify as, if they don't have something that anchors them to who they were, then you cannot complain about who they become. And who they become is who comes home to sleep on your couch, to borrow $10 and $15 and $20, who needs a ride to the job interview, but then put it on the wrong day because they didn't know how to work Google Calendar. Like, if you really want your loved one back, don't let your loved one go. Anyway,
that's real though.
I couldn't let that pass. I couldn't let this moment pass because far too often we just let them go and expect in 3, 5, 10 years they're gonna come home smiling at us.
Right.
So glad to see you. Who are you? Where were you? Yeah, and what? I don't know nothing about what you're talking about. The church done had 3, 4 different pastors. Cousins got new babies. Don't get me started. Just the point of the matter is this: if you don't want to lose us, don't let us go. Don't let us go. That means answer the phone calls, write the letters. I got a friend up in Washington right now, and I said, I'm not sending no money for no phone calls. Write me a letter. Hell, like, let's not forget the art of writing. I think it's really important, and also sharing what's going on in the community. The scanner brunch, your events, your books not bars, like, give folks hope that there's a semblance of the life they left that they can come home to, or else they don't. What do we want to come home to?
Right. And to that point, I would imagine you find community where you are, right? You find family where you are. So exactly what you're just saying. So that's why it may be a revolving door, because there's a sense of belonging and identity in that, regardless of what it looks like to us on the outside. Absolutely. Yeah.
Absolutely. Because I feel safer in there. I feel connected in there. My identity of who I've become has value in there. It doesn't have value out here. It's only getting me in trouble. It's causing me more headaches. But if I go back in there, I'm celebrated.
Mm. Mm.
Don't get me started. Don't get me started. Let me put this
Mm.
away till we're done.
That's
But
a whole
yes,
thing. But so real quick, I know, yes, let's I want to respect your time, but you brought up young people. And so I want to just kind of
yes.
bring it up to present time, not only
Mm-hmm.
what's happening in Portland, because I know it's happening in different communities across the United States. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
what would you say, in your opinion? Um, and again, I'm not asking you for your policy agenda or your campaign,
Okay.
but you can give me your campaign run if you feel like it.
Well,
But
let me tell you something. They
right,
keep playing with me. I'm gonna have to go for it.
hey, I'm with you. I'll be your manager. So, what would you say? What do you think are some of the solutions or just ideas you think, whether it's community, organizations, the average person, or even government? What do you think is missing when it comes to our youth generation and youth, so-called violence that we're seeing in the streets? What do you think are
Oh,
some
okay.
some things that are missing that should be addressed? I think what you just talked about don't lose your people, like that's at the core, 100%.
Yeah.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
what are maybe one or two ideas that have come to your mind, or just thoughts that you have?
Man, we've got to get one of the most powerful lobbying groups is K through 12 mamas. Them K through 12 mamas, listen, they will shut down PPS like it ain't nobody's business.
I'm one of them.
Okay?
Come on now. Yeah. Yep.
But when y'all begin to understand that a lot of what you are arguing about
Mm-hmm.
is really criminal justice reform,
Come on. Yes. Yep.
and you begin to show up not just on K through 12 day, but you also show up on the day of empathy, or
Right.
you show up for second chance month, you
Mm.
take and leverage your power of your K through 12 lobby to get the things that you need
Mm.
out of the public service, public safety budget. See, they call it a public safety budget, but 2/3 of it goes to prisons. And I don't know how just throwing people away for a limited time without giving them any support is public safety.
Mm-mm.
So the first thing is I need my K through 12 mamas to also show up for criminal justice reform. And what that does is at its core is it reallocates the budget.
Mm.
That means there will be less dollars for new prisons and more dollars in the classroom.
Mm.
So there's our first step. That's
Right.
just my that's
Yep.
my opinion, because money talks.
Yep.
And when you begin to and budgets are a moral document, and
Mm-hmm.
across the globe, across the nation, our moral document says that we prioritize incarceration over education. And as long as K through 12 does not see who their real enemy is, see, they think the state legislature is their enemy. Oh, you got the money, you got the money. Yeah, but are you asking where are they supposed to get the money from?
Right.
One of my good colleagues, Senator Lou Fredericks, that's always his question. Where are we supposed to get the money from? Where are we
Right.
supposed to get the money from? Well, I can tell you where to get the money from. You
Mm-hmm.
take it out of prisons. You take it out of prisons.
Yep.
Let's create more programs to send folks home. So here's the thing: when we talk about accolades, and the last picture is one of those. 2013, I helped testify for justice reinvestment.
Mm-hmm.
That law, since it's been passed, has moved $500 million back into the 37 counties around the state of Oregon. So basically, when your county does not send someone to prison, the savings stays in your county for programs. We need more programs like that, and we need more political support that pushes counties to not rely on prisons, so that way that they can see even more of the benefit. For me, it's all about reallocating the money.
Yep.
So first, let's get us some new allies, which is them K through 12 mamas. And secondly, let's increase the amount of money that's going into justice reinvestment, because that's what's going to really keep our community safe.
Right. Right. Wow. Yeah.
Because a lot of people don't even know about justice reinvestment.
No.
So But it is dollars. We actually had to go back. Some of these counties are so ridiculous. They thought that they could take the money and
Mhm.
buy and hire more police officers. We were like,
Mhm.
no, that's not what that money was for. That money is for homeless shelters. That money is for more probation officers, so you can have more people in community versus incarcerated. So,
Mhm.
yeah, it's about resource allocation,
Right.
and keeping more people at home than in the system.
Mhm. Absolutely. Absolutely. So you have a conference coming up.
Yes, the National
So
Conference on Race and Ethnicity in American Higher Ed is
okay,
called
let's talk
NCORE
about
for
it.
short.
Yes, because I had just heard about it last year, I think, from you, or I saw a
Mhm.
post, and then I
Mhm.
actually ran into someone who presented at it. She
Okay.
works for the Trailblazers right now, but she said
Yes.
she
Okay.
did a presentation there too. So now I'm like, why am I not at this conference? So please tell
Yes.
us about this conference.
So this conference is absolutely amazing. It's out of the University of Oklahoma, their social justice college. They've been doing it for years. I've been involved since like 2012, 2013. I've been going every other year because it's a week-long conference. And so there is a heavy lift to participate, but every chance I get, I'm there. And so last time they were in person was, I believe, 2019, and they were in Portland, and it
Mm-hmm.
was the largest conference ever for them. So
Wow.
they're like, we're coming back to Portland.
Mm-hmm.
And I am super excited about it. It's a place where the conversation gets started around all the things that our students need.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and it does, and like for all of our students, because it really is a conference that focuses on higher ed,
Okay.
but the outcomes of those type of trainings,
Mm-hmm.
where like mine, 2019, I talked about the prison industrial complex. I talked about the impacts on recidivism rates, right? I talked about um, how that shows up in the classroom.
Mm-hmm.
How do we support our students in finding success? And one of my big pieces is that I believe community colleges are reentry centers,
Mm-hmm.
and they should start seeing themselves as such, because for those of us that are formerly incarcerated, the only avenue for reentry really is through higher ed, which is going through the community college.
Mm-hmm.
First, I believe first that should be your first landing spot. Go get your math right, go get your English right, and
Right.
then go get your money right.
Yep.
Because it's not saying that you have to go on to a 4-year institution, but you do need the basics to be successful.
Mm-hmm.
And I think community college offers that.
Mm-hmm.
So this conference just allows an opportunity for those of us who are passionate about Jedi work, really, to
Mm-hmm.
come together and share what are the issues. Dr. Walida Imashru, she's done her presentation around Oregon. She keynoted. Um, it is a great opportunity for Portland to shine. It
Mm-hmm.
is absolutely, and I am beyond humbled that I will be a guest of the conference this year, and that they're going to allow me to do my workshop. Hopefully, I get to do it 2 times, well, 4 times, because I want to do a morning session and an afternoon session, and I want to do that twice, just because it's going to be so in depth.
Right.
Mine is a 4-part interactive affinity space. We'll have, I can't give up all the details because
Right.
everybody out here is chasing these dollars, but we really will be digging into justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion in a very unique way. That's
Mm-hmm.
what keeps me ahead of the game. And it's just an opportunity to uncover, for this particular presentation, it's for them to uncover their biases
Mm-hmm.
and their barriers to being successful allies and co-conspirators and accomplices. I don't like the word ally, but it's trending. It's what the rest of these folks use, so I throw it in there. But it's really about helping white people do better,
Mm-hmm.
because at the end of the day, they're harming. Not only are they harming other white folks who are already trying to do the work. They're harming people of color, adults of color who are trying to do the work.
Right.
And they're harming young folks of color who don't even know that this work is going on around them, but it is the sauce that we exist in.
Yep.
One of the images that I use is that white supremacy is not the shark, it's the water.
Mm-hmm.
It is not some other thing that is pursuing us. It is the very space that we exist in.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
but yeah, so that's what I'm looking forward to doing.
It's the invisible culture that we all are saturated in.
Yeah.
I got one more question for you, Tony, before we jump
Okay.
on. This is like
All right.
completely off script, completely different topic. So stay ready. How do you balance work-life balance? Where do you find joy and what makes you happy?
Let me tell you something. I find joy in traveling. It is the thing that allows me to be expressive, to be out and about. It is, I posted this flyer in my group chat with my family last night, and it turned into folks not coming to the family reunion. Yeah, it went there. They went there. I just sat back and was like, I'm on pause. The flyer. Just the flyer. Okay. And then it eventually came out, you should be sitting down somewhere with your final days, and you shouldn't be bragging. And I think people misunderstand that when I share the food that I'm eating, I'm telling the world, not so. That the world really thought that it could take me out of the game, but not so. That God saw something in me bigger than me. And is blessing me. And I'm just sharing the fruits of these blessings, not as a look at me,
right?
Look at you, but look at what's possible, right? I have a whole file folder of my multiple trips to the NAMAC, the National Historical Museum of African American Culture. I know folks who will never, ever see it.
Ever.
I don't mind sharing my Google link so that they can have that experience. These experiences aren't about me standing out here saying, oh, look what I did, look what I did, look what I did. Because I got plenty to do that with. But it's about what's possible when you trust God and you allow forgiveness to lead your life. Because again, it goes all the way back to forgiveness. If I had not tapped into the power of forgiveness, I'd probably still be sitting in a cell miserable, blaming, being a victim, being a victim to the system, being a victim to the harms of others, being the victim to my own memories, and I'd be miserable. And I just won't do that. And that's what it came down to, is that those people who have a problem with me sharing good food, good travels, good experiences, you're miserable.
Yep.
You're miserable. Absolutely. And I'm sorry for you, but you're miserable. And I was looking at the camera because I'm talking to you.
Well, let me let me tell
love
you
them,
Tony, for that.
I love them.
What I was... So my last show that I had, we were talking about mental health and spiritual health. And one of the sisters brought up, we were talking about, when you accept who you are, right? Whatever lens, whatever identity, whatever that is for you, when you accept that, right? And then you move into that light, right? I'm a firm believer that our purpose, again, put whatever religion or spirituality, whatever name you want to call it, I don't really care for the sake of this point. Our sole purpose is to glorify the life that we've been given, period. Now, if we want to be selfish and just be like, you know what, I'm supposed to just be in my house and not do nothing, and I have all these experiences, but I don't want to share it, then miss me with that. And quite honestly, that's a very arrogant and selfish life and perspective to be under. I truly believe that we are all testimonies to testify. Period. Now I'll make it real personal with me real quick. I have a 10-year-old son. He's my second born. I lost my first child. You could not have told me that I would ever have gotten to the other side of life. When
Hmm.
I lost my first
Okay.
child. It was woe is me. It was okay. I know who Allah is and all that, but I was mad. I couldn't see life beyond. Did not understand what that was. Did my own healing. Did my own work. Right. What I realized is I kept running into sisters telling me they had the same experience. So then I got mad at the community of women, just in general, all Black women. I was mad at everybody because I'm saying I experienced this and I'm thinking I'm by myself. You've had
Right.
this story and you haven't shared it. Now, I get it. Everyone is not in the same place. And I'm not saying that everyone has to share their story. What I am saying is that I felt very isolated and I thought I had such
Mm-hmm.
a unique experience. And that actually delayed my own healing
Yes.
because I'm
Yes.
feeling isolated
Yes.
and alone. So when
Yes.
I accepted that piece of my life, I tell it. And people are like, oh my, and then they want it, oh my God, I'm so sorry. No. I'm celebrating because my son now is the embodiment of my emotions that were tapped into my firstborn. And that's how my God works, right? My God, he may take, but he also gives. So
Yes.
I say all this to say we have to tell our story. And our telling our
Yeah.
story is not arrogant. It is not boastful. It is not about look at me. It's if I share my story and I impact one person or someone change their I've done my job, and I think that we this is back to the conversation last week that we had. We think so less of ourselves, which means we think
Mm-hmm.
less of you. If I think
Yeah.
I'm not great, then I'm not going to think Tony's great or Imani's
Right.
great or anyone else because
Right.
I still think I'm not great. So that stuff that people are projecting on us, right, and on people that
Mm-hmm.
are standing up and living out loud,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
you got your own personal work to do that you're not ready to live out loud for yourself, and that's on you. But don't
And that
judge
is,
those that are standing up and just testifying what their God has given them.
man, because let me tell you something. There was a time when I sat behind bars and I couldn't eat fresh cuts of meat. I couldn't have the premier
Mm.
Casamigos. I couldn't do those things,
Come
you
on
know.
now.
I couldn't hop around the country. I couldn't walk out of the plane and walk right into my rental car and pull off of the
Come
airport, right?
on.
There are certain things that there was a time when prison held me bound, and now that
Yes.
I'm not bound, why would I then put myself in my own
You know,
prison of your making?
right.
I
Right.
won't do it. I won't do it.
No.
So I love everybody, but at the end of the day, it's really about living out loud, living
Yeah,
your best life.
absolutely.
I don't believe everything is everybody's business. That's not where I'm at. That's not what I'm
No.
saying. I was telling my friend the other day, I said, for as much as I share, y'all would never ask me about the stuff that I don't share.
Right.
So
Yeah.
things are working well in my favor. In my favor, baby. They work well in my
Right.
favor.
Absolutely.
Because
Right.
my daughter, she be on me. She's like, Dad, you post a lot. You right. And don't nobody ask me about what I'm not posting either.
Right. Right. And and just on that piece about the young people, people we've got to give people hope, right? Especially our young people.
Yes.
And so if we are, I mean, there's so much to be depressed about in this city, in this world. So if I'm not able to show that even in this work, I have joy. Even in this work, I'm happy.
Yes.
Even
Yes.
in this work, I'm good, I'm calm, self-care. Like if we're not showing that side of it, then why the
Hmm.
hell would we think people want to change the world? Why would we expect people to do better when I don't
Right.
see the people that are doing better living happy? I see the people doing
Right.
better stressed the hell out. So that's another
Right.
piece for I think for and this is I speak to myself first. Anytime I open my mouth, I'm talking to me first and then whoever's listening.
Hmm.
But this is
Whoever listened.
and whoever listening. But this is why I had to check myself because I said, Imani, if my son only sees me just 9 to 5 or 40, just working, and he don't see me joyful, or I'm always like, oh, get away from me. If I'm doing all that, then he gonna grow up not wanting the lifestyle that I'm trying to show him, which is entrepreneurship freedom and managing my
Yep.
own time, right?
Yep.
So I had to
Yep.
put my
Yep.
own mentality. And I said, Imani, you got to start adding some joy and some damn happiness in your life, you know? And for the
Yes.
last year and a half, I have, which is why blessings
Hmm.
on blessings. But it was
Yes.
a shift, you know?
Yes.
It was
Okay. Because you show enough walking in your blessings over there.
okay. Praise him and everybody in between. But but I had to make that shift is my point. I had to make
Hmm.
that mental shift because it just I want to be a vessel that our people look at and say, you know what? I remember that sister when she didn't have X, Y, and Z, and look at her now. And I've never wavered in my consistency and how I show up for my people, my community. And again, if only one person gets touched by that story, then all praise is due. Because at the end
That's
of the
it.
day, that's what I think is our duty and our job is to constantly be those examples in a good way, So anyway,
Hmm.
that's a whole
And
nother.
that's what I said. I said, that's my job. The word says that I'm supposed to be a
Yes,
living epistle.
come on.
And so I was like, I'm sorry, but this is actually what I'm called to do. Not sure what
And
set
that's
of
your
scriptures you were reading, but
right. That's your
that's
assignment.
what mine says. That's my
And my
assignment.
assignment is not
And
your assignment.
And my tagline on my email says impacting lives and changing the world. And that's all I want to do every day. And
Right.
every day that I have a conversation, do something like this, share a word of advice, word of concern, I'm impacting someone's life and therefore changing the world. And
Mhm.
that is a great feeling.
Mhm.
That's where my joy is. My joy rests in knowing that I am living my purpose, and I'm doing it on my terms.
Yep.
Like when I check out of here, they're gonna hear Frank Sinatra playing, singing "My Way."
Yes. You ain't going nowhere though. You got
Not
that.
listen, not the way I'm feeling recharged, and that's the thing. We got to do the things that celebrate the life that we say that we live and
Yep.
that we love.
Yep.
And I got out of here and I got to travel and I got to meet new people. I got to connect with family and friends I haven't seen in a long time. I seen 2, 3 people I hadn't seen in 10 years,
Mm-hmm.
and it was as if no time had passed at
Right.
all,
Yep.
and that's the beauty of it. And I feel so recharged and ready for a long battle ahead.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I just am. I'm grateful for every day that I get. I'm grateful for every moment that I'm still yet alive. But I also know that with each and every moment, I know what I'm supposed to do with it,
Right.
which is to continuously impact lives and change the world.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Tony, this has been great. You just gave me so much
Thank
juice.
you.
I mean, I
Thank
woke
you.
up in my flow, but you've added so much more, and I appreciate you. As you know, I appreciate your time today. Um, what is I already asked your last question. So how do people get a hold of you? I have the email there, but I
Yeah.
guess what is it? Are you taking on more work? Are you taking on more contracts, clients?
I am. Please. Yes, I would love to. I do have a couple of clients right now that I'm working with. Some of the work that I'm dealing with is helping to redesign outdoor school experience for our babies
Oh,
because I think that they need to have a better experience when they're out in nature.
mm-hmm.
Co-creating a restorative justice program for an elementary school because I think that if we get young people started on that process early and familiarize them with it, it'll help as they matriculate throughout the
Mm-hmm.
school system, finding better solutions to problems. Um, Working with another nonprofit, working with a institution, educational institution around brain health. Just there's just I
Mm-hmm.
am grateful to be. I'm grateful that my voice still matters, and so I lean in where I can. But
Wow.
definitely, I'm looking forward for more opportunities, especially after doing this. I think it's going to be a radical workshop, an all white, whites only affinity space presentation led by a person of color. Um, Up until then, when I let them break off to affinity space, because I want them to have space to say what they need to say,
Right.
check them, do some self checking,
Mm-hmm.
then identify collectively from the group, what do they feel comfortable sharing back with me to
Right.
get my feedback on. So they gonna have their time and their space.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm gonna come on back in the room and we're gonna dig deep. But I am looking forward to more opportunity to do this work, because for me, it's really what keeps me alive,
Yep.
is being involved in helping change and advance social justice.
Yep.
You know, Dr. King says life's most persistent and urgent question is, what is it that we're doing for others? And I constantly want my life to be in service to others.
Period. We're going to end with that. We're going to end
All
there.
right.
I appreciate you. I'm going to actually reach out to
Appreciate
you
you.
offline, because I had two ideas that came
Yes.
out of my head. So we're going to be doing
Yes.
some work together. But
Sounds good to me.
thank you all for tuning in. This is our, I think, third show of our second season.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. And you're going to come back too. And we're going to do a part 2. So until then, y'all, thank y'all. Peace and blessings. Take care of yourself, and we'll see you next time.
Take care, everyone.